Hello and welcome to a look at Spitfire for the Commodore 64, a game that was released by Elite. The scenario for this particular title is that the enemy is trying very hard to flatten your airbase and to prevent you from putting things into the air, to stop their things in the air. And of course that is not a particularly clever thing, so you are told to scramble, also known as getting airborne as quick as humanly possible, in order to shoot down their things in the air to prevent them from stopping you putting things into the air. Did that make sense? I don't know. As you can likely gather from the title of this particular game, you are in control of a Spitfire. The Spitfire, of course, was a legendary fighter plane. It was considered to be the finest of its type in the era it was present in. Technically, let's not worry too much about technicalities, but still, technically, the Hurricane downed more planes than the Spitfire ever did. So, yeah, well, the argument is whether the Hurricane was actually the superior plane of the two. But that's not for this video to get involved with. Being in control of your Spitfire, you have to fly towards the enemy and shoot down things in the air and shoot down things on the ground. Oh, they're already down? Ah well, you blow them up on the ground, whatever the case might be. And the targets available ranged from Messerschmitts to flying bombs to ships and U-boats and things that I have yet to identify, and buildings and power lines and rail tracks and whatever else could be. If it looks like it's not part of the background, then you can probably blow it up. Your ultimate goal is to destroy all the enemy's bases before they destroy your base and before you run out of fuel. It perhaps sounds a bit silly, but don't worry, I'll come back to that one a little later on in this video. To cover the interface, let's look at the bottom left corner if we want to. I tell you to do it, so you do it. Never mind. Whatever. The MPH, of course, is miles per hour, which is your speedometer thing, airspeed indicator, whatever it's called. The further the needle is to the right, the faster you're flying. To the right of that, you have your fuel gauge, and you can imagine if that goes to 0, you run out of fuel, which has a larger consequence than you may think. To the right of that, this big panel thing, which could look like some sort of scanner, is actually just a graphical, I don't know what. The bar on top of that is your information bar, where you will get information about whether your craft has been hit, or you've hit something, or whether you get points from destroying something. Occasionally, at least, because sometimes, for whatever reason, the display just stopped displaying stuff. Yeah. Just above that, you have a damage indicator for your Spitfire, and currently there are 3 bullet holes. I was about to say 2, but it just changed to 3. And you can imagine the more bullet holes you have displayed, the worse your Spitfire is going to handle, and the more fuel it's going to use, and all that stuff. To the right of that big blob thing, the first gauge, is your ammo counter, and surprise, surprise, if you run out of ammunition, you can no longer shoot. I'm full of surprises today, aren't I? Further to the right is your altimeter, whatever it's called, which is your altitude gauge. If that bottoms out, you have just smacked into the ground. Congratulations on not so successful sortie. Technically, from a graphical point of view, you could argue that this game looks somewhat impressive. I mean, fair is fair. The Spitfire is, of course, a very iconic looking plane, so someone with an amount of graphical skill would probably be able to at least give the illusion of a Spitfire relatively easily. But all things aside, I think the representation of the Spitfire in this particular title is fairly decent. But that's also where the fairly decent sort of stops, because it definitely feels like, from a graphical point of view, that the namesake of the title of this game has been given the most attention. The other graphical objects, the Messerschmitts are a bit dull, the flying bombs are generic, ships barebone in their portrayal of being ships, and gunpowder and that kind of stuff is, yeah, as barebone as it can be. The sound effects, you have the engine running, which is a bit of an annoying sound after a while. Then of course you have the taka 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 from machine guns, which you'd likely expect from a game of this type. And then you get the occasional pop when something blows up. It's a bit more than pop, but not an awful lot more. And you get the same pop whether you blow up a ground installation or you shoot on a plane or whatever it is you do. The title music is the only music in this particular game, and it's nothing special. It's not entirely bad, but it's not entirely epic either, and while it is very obvious that the tune is very distinct from the 1942 tune, there's still, in my opinion at least, a hint of the tone of 1942's music to be found. As I said, I don't think it's particularly good or particularly bad. The controls on which you can expect them to be left, right, up, down, to do those kind of things, related to a plane of course, so you accelerate when you're flying right by holding right, and you accelerate by holding left if you're flying left, and that kind of stuff. The fire button is used to shoot stuff, which is expected, I suppose. And in and by themselves, the controls even work perfectly fine. Now, if you consider graphics and sounds and controls and all that kind of stuff to be the individual components, then gameplay obviously is the glue that holds them all together. And the glue used for this particular title is not particularly strong, because yeah, you see, the emphasis was obviously to make it very, very obvious that you were in control of a Spitfire, and the depiction of the Spitfires, as I've mentioned earlier, fairly accurate. But it's also fairly big, and that is where the game sort of works against itself, because your view of the action is incredibly limited because of that big thing being on the screen at all times. And that means, of course, that when you're trying to do strafing runs in order to destroy the stuff on the ground, which is the important thing for you to destroy, you have very, very little time to line up correctly. And you end up making use of a function where if you hold right while flying right, your plane is going to spin around its own axis, and then you can shoot without smacking into anything on the ground. Of course, the collision detection doesn't always agree with you actually hitting stuff, so that is still a doubtful way of doing things, but it is the only way of doing things reliably. And that gets incredibly tedious incredibly quickly, to be honest. My personal interest in this game dwindled after about 15 seconds, and other people might do better than me, but yeah. You have a map available, which is completely and utterly useless, because it doesn't show you any progression that you are doing. Or it might do, but maybe my eyes are not working the way they should do, because I just found it to be a garbled mess. But I was mentioning something about fuel. If you run out of fuel with the plane you're currently flying, you go straight to the game over screen. It doesn't really matter if you have 7 spare planes on the base. No. So what you need to do is you need to make sure to ditch the plane before you run out of fuel even, in order to get a fresh plane with fresh fuel. Yeah, not particularly clever design if you ask me, but yeah, this game may look pretty, but it doesn't play particularly pretty, if you know what I mean. On that note, thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time. Bye bye for now.